So after all those years of waiting, the final season of Stranger Things is finally out in the wild. And I mean, of course, the whole world was watching. Fans have been going over every single frame, debating every single twist. But now that the dust is kind of settling over Hawkins, some pretty big questions are starting to bubble up.
Look, with an ending this huge, this epic, you gotta ask, did it all actually hold together? Now, the season absolutely delivered on the spectacle, no question there. But, a few things have left a lot of us just scratching our heads. So today, we are going to dive into some of the biggest questions and critiques that have been popping up about the show's final chapter.
All right, let's kick things off with the people at the very heart of the story, the characters themselves. Because for a group of people we know so well, some of the choices our favorite Hawkins heroes made, they felt, well, a little strange. Yeah. Even for Stranger Things. Okay, first up, let's talk about the change we see in Dustin. He's always been the guy with the plan, right? The cautious strategist holding the whole party together. But in this final season, he suddenly gets this me against the world attitude. He's recklessly provoking the jocks, and this is the really weird part, he starts shutting out the very friends who have always had his back. It all kind of comes to a head when he gets jumped at the cemetery. So he misses this super important meeting with the group, and then instead of just telling them what happened, he makes up this really flimsy story about a bike crash. I mean, after everything these kids have been through together, Demogorgons, the Mind Flayer, all of it, why on earth would he suddenly start lying about getting beaten up? It just feels like a huge step backward for his character. And, Dustin isn't the only one acting a little off. Let's talk about Mike Wheeler for a second. So his little sister Holly starts talking to this, imaginary friend who's warning her about monsters and Hawkins. Now, given everything Mike knows, you'd think he'd be the first person to listen, right? But his reaction is something else. He just flat out denies it. This is Mike Wheeler, the guy who has literally fought monsters, traveled to a whole other dimension. His girlfriend moves things with her mind, for crying out loud. Out of every single person on the planet, you'd think he would take his sister's warning seriously. But no, he just dismisses her completely until he's personally attacked and has absolutely no choice but to believe her. Okay, so beyond some weird character choices, let's get into a few specific scenes where the show's own internal logic just seemed to break down. Those moments that can kind of pull you right out of the story. It starts with this incredibly tense, high-stakes plan. 11 has to sneak into a military base where they think Vecna is being held. To get a very reluctant Hopper on board, she tells him she's timed the thunder crashes perfectly. She says she has precisely 7 seconds between each boom to move without being heard. 7 seconds. That's it. But here's the thing. When the scene actually happens, the gap is 17 seconds. Now, you could say that's just nitpicking, but come on. When a show sets up a rule as specific as 7 seconds, you have to assume your audience is going to be counting along. It's a tiny detail, yeah, but it's one that just completely deflates the tension the scene was working so hard to build. And that brings us to another moment of, let's call it, questionable physics. So we've got Mike, Will, and the younger kid Derek trying to hold a bathroom door shut against a trained soldier. They're on a wet, slippery floor, which is already a stretch, but then 2 more soldiers join him, and these 3 kids somehow still hold the door shut? It felt less like a desperate struggle and more like the plot just needed them to stay put for a few minutes. Okay, so let's zoom out a bit from specific scenes and talk about a bigger issue with the season's pacing. A really surprising lack of urgency. I mean, think about how season 4 ended, right? The Upside Down was literally cracking Hawkins open. You'd expect the next season to be a frantic, desperate, nonstop fight for survival. But instead, we get moments like this. While the world is supposedly ending right outside his door, Ted Wheeler is just working on his putting. It completely cuts the legs out from under the stakes of the story. If the characters who are right there at ground zero don't seem all that worried, why should we be? And this weird lack of urgency creeps into even the most critical moments. So take this scene. A Demogorgon is attacking the Wheeler house, and a portal to the Upside Down is closing, fast. Nancy is screaming her head off, trying to get 11 through it before it seals up forever. So how does 11 respond to this life or death situation? With a brisk walk. There's no sprinting, no sense of panic, just a casual stroll towards this closing gate like she's in no real hurry at all. It's just such a bizarre choice, and it completely drains the tension from what should have been a heart-pounding moment.
And it wasn't just the heroes either. Even the big bad himself, Vecna, seems to be taking his sweet time. When he's chasing down his victims, they're sprinting for their lives, but he's just power walking behind him. It definitely makes the ultimate villain feel a lot less threatening, you know?
But maybe the single biggest issue, and honestly the one that might explain a lot of these other problems, is the decision to just jump forward in time. I mean, just look at this timeline. Season 4 ends in March of '86, with our heroes looking out at this massive invasion, bracing for an epic war. But then Season 5 just picks up 20 months later. That gigantic war that we were all waiting for, it seems like it happened entirely off screen. We're just dropped right into the aftermath. And Robin puts it perfectly. That huge fissure that split the town in two is now just covered up with a giant steel band-aid. We see the result of the conflict, the military quarantine, this new normal, but we never actually got to see the conflict itself. And really, that's what it all comes down to. The show spent 4 whole seasons building up to this huge, all-out war between worlds, and then it just jumped right over it. It leaves us with this one big, lingering question. If the story wasn't really about the fight itself, what was this finale actually trying to say? I'd love to know what you think.